Okay. So with Firebase, you need to include this reference to Firebase. This is the Firebase JavaScript file. This allows you to incorporate all the different methods and functions that are available within Firebase, including the Firebase object. So if we go back to our Firebase over here, this is my own database that I created that's a little bit more, well, it's actually a lot more complicated, so I wouldn't look at that yet. What I'm going to do is switch to Coders Bay. So I'm going to switch my profiles. And let's just set this to 0. And what I'm going to do is if I go to Overview, I can add Firebase to my web app. So whenever you create a new database, this is the first thing you want to do, is go to this section over here to Overview, click on this Add Firebase to your web app, and what you do is you just copy all this information. So you can hit copy. And what they've decided to do is just put the HTML link in here. Where is it? This is the script link to the Firebase. And from there, they put the logic for the API key in here. So the API key, the auth domain, database URL, storage bucket, all that they put in here, and they took out the script tags from it. So what you get is all of this information. What they did was they took out this information, put it inside the HTML, and they linked to the logic.js, which is going to contain all the rest of this. Now, the rest of this information, you don't need these script tags. It actually won't work if you have these script tags. So instead what you do is do that, and you notice that these two are now the same. So we can then remove this. Questions about how to start off Firebase? No questions? If you have a question, just say yes, and then what I'll do is I'll wait for you guys to type something in. All right. So with the CoderBay application, what we did was we had these initial variables. So again, very good practice to set up your variables at the top. So these are the variables that we needed that were global. First one is initial bid, initial bidder. So if there's no initial bid, no initial bidder, then we instantiate this to 0 and put in quotes, no one. We set the high price to be the initial bid and initial bidder to be the high bidder to start off with. Now, this is all locally, right? So this is just on our application. So we have a couple of event listeners. One is detecting data on value. So if I go back to the unsolved logic.js, it says, okay, at the initial load, get a snapshot of the current data. And it also gave us, whenever user clicks the submit bid button, I want to run some logic. So it actually does some of the logic for us. What we want to do is put in the code that will run that logic. So let's take a look at what they set up for us already. They set up the database.ref. So yes, what's the question? If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and then ask the question. Or I can do it for you here. Right now, yes. Can you guys see me clicking? So the database.ref.on is what I'm referring to right now. So when I say database.ref, this refers to the link to, or the file path essentially, to my URL. And what I'm saying on value, it's saying that whenever anything changes at my entire database point, I get back an object. Now, this object is not a JavaScript object, but it contains data in a certain format, and it's passed into this function. So this runs at initial load, meaning that whenever the application first loads up, and then whenever data changes. Now, if Firebase has a, okay, let me do text wrap actually. And let me close this. Should be easier to see. Okay. So right now what we're doing is this database.ref, and what this does is it says, okay, on the entire database, when anything changes, give me back a snapshot of the entire database at that point. So if this, now what we're using over here is saying, okay, if Firebase has a high price and a high bidder stored, so we use this method called .child, and we say, okay, snapshot.child, so does it have this child called high bidder? And we do .exist to check, okay, this does exist. So this whole thing returns either true or false. And over here, we're doing some other data validation saying snapshot.child high price. And if that exists, then it's either true or false. So now what we do is set the initial variables for high bidder equal to stored values. Let's see. So high bidder equal to, let me do snapshot dot child do high bidder val. That should work. From there, we change the HTML to reflect the initial value. So let's see. What is the parent of snapshot.child in something in this scenario? So the parent of snapshot.child is the entire database. So because it's URL based, this would be coder-bay-fee9d. So that's snapshot at this point. Snapshot.child, and then you say, okay, the child that is, yes, this is the root. This is the root. These are immediate children of coder-bay. And then we specify exactly which child that we want. So now we're going to say, can you put folders in the root? No, there would never be folders. These would always be keys. It's generally like acts as an object, right? You can think of it as an object as key value pairs. So you can put other data types, like you can put numbers, arrays, other objects in there, but folders you wouldn't be able to put in. All right, so change the HTML to reflect the initial value. So let's see, where are we gonna update the HTML to? If we go to, so highest bidder is going to be in highest bidder. That makes sense. Highest dash bidder. So what I'm going to do is just use some jQuery. And then I can just put this in there. So I don't have to repeat this whole thing because I already stored it in this value. I can just pass in high bidder. Print the initial data to the console. This is for us. I can just do high bidder. High bigger. So let's see if this works. If I open this up. So right now, let's see what's in the console. Database is not defined. Let's see. Database. Oh, I didn't define this. Correct. Oh, I didn't initialize it either. I forgot to that I switched between them. So let's just copy and paste this. There we go. And highest bidder is Jeff. Cool, so that works. What it said was database wasn't defined. So when I put database.ref over here, I put firebase.database. Again, I don't really have to do this. Just a good way to like set up your variables in the beginning. I could have just done this. And that works the same. But generally good to shorten things out just in case you're using database.ref multiple times. And that way you don't have to call the whole thing over and over. If you change the var database, does it change firebase.database? No, if you can name the variable whatever you want. So the variable will always just hold whatever value that you put inside, whatever expression is on the right-hand side. Is that what you mean? This is very odd. Can you guys just unmute yourselves if you guys have a question? Because I can't hear like any interaction. It's very strange. So here, I'm gonna unmute Brian. Okay, I think just automatically muting.
Hello.
Yo, okay.
So you got my last question.
So var monkey was firebase.monkey. Oh, okay. So yeah, no, this is just a variable and this is an actual method. This has to be called .database.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Yeah, so if you guys have a question, just unmute yourselves, ask the question, and then mute yourselves again if you guys don't have anything else to add. Excellent. Marissa, yes, what's your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, under database.ref on value,
Yes.
you're passing in the highest bidder into the HTML. Is that because we're getting user input that's being saved into the database, and then from the database it's being pushed up into the HTML?
At this point, we're not getting it, or we're just retrieving information. We're not setting information, but correct. We are saying that assuming that there is information from high bidder, and that's why we put this data validation. If it exists, then the high bidder is going to be equal to this, and then we just set that in the HTML. So again, it has to exist, right? Right now, we haven't said anything, actually. So what we're getting back is actually data that someone else put in, assumably Jeff. Questions about that? You want me to clarify that? Marissa, would you like me to clarify? I hear random bursts of sound. Okay. I'll let you work on your mic issues. What storage bucket? It's just a place where you can store information. It's different than your database, and you don't have to worry about it right now. It's just an additional thing that Firebase gives you. So if you want to store like assets on there, you can store assets on there. And Karunashi, your oh, and sorry, Nicholas. Yes, what's your question? And let me unmute you. So Nicholas, what's your question? All right, we need to do a tutorial on how to use Zoom first. So everyone, I want you to look at your Zoom accounts. It's pretty simple. It's let's see. Let me go to Zoom. Share screen, meetings, contacts, chats. Where's my window? Bring all to front. Yep, these are all my windows. Oh, I think I have to stop sharing. Stop or pause share.
Okay, hello?
Hello?
Hey, I had a question about that last block from...
Oh, one second. I just want to go over
sorry.
so people understand the video and the audio. So whenever I share, I have to use, whenever I share, it turns into this screen. If I stop sharing, it'll take me back to my original screen. And to mute myself, I hit mute. And to stop video, I hit stop video. If I want to talk, I have to unmute myself. And then my microphone should work after that. I think some people are getting some confusion about that. All right, sorry, what were you saying?
Okay, so that database block where you reference the database, like it seems like a function block, is that considered asynchronous? Because it can always run and access the database regardless.
Are you talking about this over here?
I can't see that you're pointing at, sorry.
So can you see what I'm highlighting?
Nope, I can't. I'm not sure why. I see another screen.
I think I paused share. Okay, now I resume.
Oh, there we go. Yes, sorry. That exactly. Yeah, that block there that you're highlighting, the one, and it goes down to the last curly. That's asynchronous, right? So it could be running regardless of any other flow.
Yeah. So this will run asynchronously, and it's based on event listening.
Oh, okay. It's based on event listening. That's
so
because
the event
of the
listener
value?
is this on value over here, right? So this on listener.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. And then Brandon, did you have a question about storage buckets some more, or was that it? Shouldn't unmute me because I have loud background noise. Okay. Fair enough. So any confusion so far about what we're doing though? No?
Nope.
Okay. No more questions as long as it doesn't hurt us if we don't use it for fire. No. Yeah, the only thing that you need is the database. All you need is this database URL. You don't even need the rest. I mean, API key, yeah, but auth domain, you don't really need yet. Storage bucket, you don't need yet. Okay, so now going back to the logic. So the logic for this is you say if this exists, right? So, God, yes, go away. Sorry, this is Docker. Docker can be really annoying. So I have this conditional statement that says, if there is a high bidder and a high price, then I'm going to do whatever's in here. However, if I don't have high bidder and high price, so if they're not equal to anything, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the HTML to reflect the initial value. So the initial value is just going to be the initial bid, so I just set it to high price. So change the HTML. So we do over here. And we can use the exact same one. And print the initial data to the console. So console.log, hi bidder. But we're not going to run into this right now because we already have someone, I think it was Jeff, that put in some information. Actually, let's delete these and let's see what happens. Let's remove these. So now we have nothing here. Now let me try my application again. So if I refresh this, highest bidder is correctly set to no one. I also want to set the initial value. It doesn't mention the other one, but let's set it to high price as well. So high price.
Hey, can you console log the snapshot, like when it's empty and then when it's got something in there?
Yeah, let me do that. So let me just do high price. And so I want to put both of those in there. Let me do console.log, high price. So I want to show not just, holy crap, you guys are using this application, huh? You bastards. So highest bidder right now is Omar Patel, and current price is not set to anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, and I want the highest price to be reflected as well. So let's do high price. Console log that as well. So same exact logic. I just want to show both sets of information. Refresh, and apparently 666. Very mature. Okay, so yeah, if you guys are using this locally, then you are able to change the same database and the information in that database. So if I were to change this now, actually, I wouldn't be able to directly change it yet because I still haven't finished the rest of my logic. So right now this retrieves the information, but I haven't done anything to set the information. So now let's go how to set the information. So to set the information, we use this submit bid. When we do on click, we want the following code to work. So first we get the input values. So input values are going to be inside our HTML. So where are they? Bidder name and, or is it? Yeah, bidder name and bidder price. Okay, let's go back to bidder name and bidder price. So you have to do bidder dash name. Let's see, var name equals bidder name. Well, hold on, there's something weird. Shouldn't be blue. That's kind of weird. Okay. Var price equals bidder price dot val. And let's just check this information. So console.log, and I'm just gonna do name plus price. And let me just refresh, Commander Farsight. So now I know who's messing with it. It's definitely Brandon. So if I put meow mix, and if I put 1,000, if I hit submit and I go to inspect, bidder price is not defined. Am I using bidder price? Oh yeah. Let's see, bidder price. Ah, okay. So they want me to set the bidder price to be this one. Okay. And then name I can leave alone. Okay. So if I go to meow mix, put whatever. Let's see. It's still saying price is not defined. Where did I put price? Oh, I put it over here. Bidder price. Okay. Meow mix. That bid is too low. Try again. And that works just fine. Cool. So our information is being displayed correctly, and our logic is working just fine. So over here, the logic states that bidder price, this is going to be the variable that we're using, and that's coming from our input. So this is the bidder price input, gets the value from this, and stores in a variable called bidder price. From here, we have a console.log, and it's saying name plus, and then new line plus bidder price. So this gives us what we have over here, which is meowmix12121, and we have a console.log above that already mentions high bidder and high price. So far so good. So next we want to save the new price in Firebase. So how do we save the new price? Let's say that we want to use set. To save this inside Firebase, I need to use the set function. So let's take a look at how to use set. So if I use, let's see. Oh, we have it right here, never mind. Database.ref. I'm just going to copy and paste this in there. It's better to actually use the specific child that you want to set things to, but because we're setting everything at the highest level, like at the root, then you can just use something like this. But let's say that you want to set up multiple items inside high bidder, then you want to set database.ref and then whatever the child is going to be, and then the child path for that. But in this case, we're just setting it to root. So what we do is we set high bidder is going to be bidder name. So then I'm just going to, yeah, let's just change this. Bidder name. And the high price is going to be set to bidder price. Now this is only if the bidder price is higher than the high price. The high price, again, that's coming from here. So this is what's stored locally. And this is also updated with the latest high price from the database. So if someone put in some information that's higher than that, then you set this information. So now we log the new high price. And then store it in the local variable. Okay, so we have high price and high bidder. The high price is equal to, actually, let's do high name, or was it? High bidder is equal to bidder name, and high price is equal to bidder price. Change the HTML to reflect the new high price and bidder. So we don't need to do this because we already have that on value. And that's it. So this is the application. This is a semi-complex application for what you guys know so far. So we went over all the basics of what we covered so far with Firebase using this application. Did you guys have any questions so far before I go on to the next set of questions? I think it was, let's see. Yeah, so before we go on to Brian's questions, anyone have questions about this? Yes, Brian, what's up?
So I'm confused about how, okay, the data was set in the database, but how is it being sent back up to the web page?
So the web page, remember you have this listener. You have this event listener that's always waiting for any change in the database. So because we set something in here, and let's just make sure it works first. So if I hit refresh, I'm going to put, I don't know, Space Marines. I'm going to put price is 9,002, hit submit, and the information gets updated here. So that's because every time I set anything or use anything that saves data, if I have something that's listening for a change, then I want the view to be in there, any output to come from here, because this will automatically update everything. Are we, so Brian, did that answer your question about that?
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And then Marcos, are we able to create multiple databases? Yes, you can create multiple databases, but I would not suggest trying to use multiple databases in conjunction with each other yet. So John, I'm using the term child in a different way that I'm used to. Are you referring to each data element in a database as a child? Yes. In the case of, you want to think of everything in computer science as being in a node type relationship, meaning that if you look over here, you have things in like a tree where it's like this tree has these two children. So this is the parent node and these are the child nodes. Very similar to what you see inside of the DOM. So DOM also has the node architecture where everything is a parent element, everything has a child element. Sorry, if it has children, they're called children. And it works in this ancestral type of way. And they also have siblings and whatnot. So these two are siblings with each other. And this is a parent element over here. So Marissa is asking, can you explain the difference between snapshot and set? Yes, snapshot will retrieve the information. So this is me getting this implicitly. So I get this back, snapshot, every time I use database.ref, or anytime I use this on value, I will automatically get the snapshot back. I could have named it, snap or whatever I want. So data retrieved. However you want to think about it, but we use snapshot because it's appropriate. It's taking an entire snapshot of whatever you asked for, and it will retrieve that information. Set will replace and write to wherever you want in that database. So again, we're still using database.ref. So at this location, save this data in there. At this location, retrieve whatever data is in there. So essentially, they're just two. They're two different concepts. One is retrieving data, and one is setting data. So set will not give you the snapshot. Set will put information into the database at that specific location. So this is saving data to the database. Database.onValue will retrieve information. So Marissa, are you good with that? And then make sure you unmute yourselves if you guys are asking questions. Okay. Marcos, how can you create users with Firebase? For instance, Jonathan's chat application. Oh yeah, your mic's not working. So to create users with Firebase, it's actually pretty easy. Let me think of an example. So if you wanted to randomly create users based on new users coming in, then you can just use the push function. I'm not going to use the push, the push method yet, because we're going to cover that on Monday and Tuesday. So right now I want to just do a review on what we've already started covering. Okay, so Marcos liking this app. Can you make the highest bidder not be able to bid anyone? Oh, bid anymore. That would be a logical thing. So you would say like, actually that would be based on user. We can actually have it using something called presence, and I'll go over presence on Monday and Tuesday. And then Brian, yes, please unmute.
All right, so the snapshot, when we get that information back, you said it's like a JSON object, or I'd like to see that, like what's being passed back from this particular instance.
Cool. So let's console.log it.
Yeah.
Snapshot. Remember, you have to convert it to a JavaScript object by doing .val. Right. Snapshot on its own, you won't, like, let's see. If I do this, I'm going to get something really weird, right? But if I do snapshot.val, then I get a JavaScript object back. Right? So when I do it like this, it returns some kind of weird information in its own type of like binary. But if I do snapshot.val, it returns it as it returns the information from your database location. Again, your database location is database.ref and whatever arguments you passed into ref. And then that snapshot represents the data at that point when you passed in value. So you say snapshot.value and it's saying, oh, okay, give me that information. And I gave you back all this information.
All right, looks good.
Any other questions? All right, so let's see. There's some questions in here. Why do we set the rules of read and write to true? What would we put there in a real world scenario? What is that doing? So good question. I actually have a application that does run without the read true and write true. This is actually bad. You shouldn't do this. This is just for us to test stuff out. You guys can do this on your first project because I don't want you guys to care about authentication yet. But when we get to project 2, you guys will definitely need authentication by that point. And we're going to cover authentication. Yes. So that way I don't run into people like Brandon messing with my database by just updating the application. And they need to be authenticated, and I can guard my application against who I want to change the data. So if I take a look at another application I have, so I have a game called Monster Game or something stupid that I made. And it was just to show the ability to go into channels to randomly generate users and for people to only work in that area. So let me just, Marcos, I'll just finish doing the authentication part and then I'll get to you. So we have Monster Game, and notice this one in the database, I have rules set to auth is not equal to null, right is auth is not equal to null. So if you took a look at this application, let's open it up. So where is it? So I actually created this to help people out with understanding authentication via Firebase if you did want to do it, and a more complex Firebase application. So it's actually UCLA-projects. Monster Game, and if I open that up, so I basically just made some random game and just said, okay, this has authentication. So if I go to sign up, oh, it's the same thing. Okay. So I don't remember how this worked. Oh, it's already being used. Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't remember there being a validation. Sign up. Oh, I'm already using that too. Let's see. Oh, I set up authentication for all these accounts. I forgot. Holy shit. Tons of people check this out. What the hell is that? Okay, so this is where your authentication URL actually becomes really useful. I forgot that I set this up. I set this up like in 2016, as you can see. So I was messing around with this, and essentially it allows me to authenticate, and it does authentication via their own system. So it does a really good job of that. And you can store like the users that you allow essentially. Yeah, you can, but you can also just go through it and just be like, okay, I only want these people to have this access. So I'm just gonna go through, let's see, can I select multiple? I guess I have to manually do this. Okay, so let me just delete one of these. And now if I try Gmail, nice. Okay, so I get an email verification. So Firebase actually does some cool stuff. So it does the email verification thing. This is a really complicated thing that I had to set up though. Yeah, so I get a verification thing for my game. Click on this link. Email's been verified. Email confirmed. I clicked on that, and now I hit my display name. So I can choose, I don't know, Booger Wiener. And I might have deleted this choose character. Did I ever create it? I don't know. I guess I didn't get that far, but I thought I did, but I guess I didn't. But that's generally the gist of like creating authentication, and I mean going like way further with it, where you have like people signing in, signing out, and you can see the information in here. So if I refresh this, you can now see that Omar Patel 123@gmail.com was created on March 12th, so that's today, and I'm given a specific user ID as well. And I'm able to use that user ID however I wish. So it's really interesting how the authentication works. But again, that's way beyond what I want you guys to understand at this initial part. If you guys are feeling very comfortable with Firebase, then I want you to get into this. And then if you're interested, what you can do is you can go to my... Well, what I'll do is I'll just send this to you so you can try setting all that up, because it's very easy. You can just clone this repository or just download it, because you don't need to have this on a live URL. So let me send this over to instructor resources, and you can have fun with it. And there's a ton of logic. So if you want to take a look at how you're supposed to set up your CSS, your fonts, images, and everything, generally, this is like how you do it. I did a lot of logic for this one, so it can get pretty complicated. Again, I wouldn't really go into this unless you're really interested in like, creating a game and whatnot. And there's still some stuff missing. Like I never really finished it. This is more for like an example. All right, so Brian, any other questions about authentication in terms of like what the authentication does?
That wasn't my question, was it?
Yeah, Brian says.
Oh, the rules on. Okay, yeah, I'm good on that. That's good.
All right, cool. All right, so what is actually happening when we create a variable to reference the Firebase database? What does that do? So when we create that variable, so let me close this one out. It's the easier one. Need this in logic. Here we go. So your question was about what is actually happening when we create a variable to reference the Firebase database. So this database is a variable that references this database method on the Firebase object. So you can use this Firebase object and methods once you imported that link. So the link is over here. And this Firebase link will actually allow you to get a whole bunch of different methods and objects that you can then use. And it actually just references the database itself, meaning the URL for the database.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I think we went through what is the snapshot.
Yeah, you cleared up most of my questions so far.
Okay, cool. And then Kivanch was asking about stringify versus parse. So stringify is the opposite of parse. So let's say that I wanted to store something. So let's go to local storage. So what happened here is in our activity number 8 in 7.1, we had to store information as a string. So to store information as a string, we use stringify. But to retrieve that information and be able to use it as an object format, we had to use JSON.parse. So watch what happens when I do console.log local storage dot get item to-do list. And then I do console.log list, which is going to be an object format after it goes through parse. So this is going to be in string format, and this should be an object format. So let's open up this file. So to-do list persisted with local storage. I'm just going to do crying, laughing, more crying. So if I refresh this, let's see. Yeah. So notice that when I console.log the to-do list in console.log, it returned a string. And it looks like it returned an array, right? But notice that the second one is actually an array, because when I click down, it says, hey, the prototype is an array, has a length of 3, and these are the indices with the different values for each one. This one, it just looks like an array, but it's actually just a string. All right. So when we parse something using this JSON.parse, it converts it from a string into an object again. In this case, the object was an array. So we're able to then go through the data as you would using the array methods and object methods. Does that answer your question, Kivanch? Are you there? I'm going to unmute you. Kivanch, does that answer your question? Yes? Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure thing. Okay, so I guess that was it for questions. Anything else? We're hitting 8 o'clock now, so I think it's the perfect time, but I can answer like one more question. Everybody good? No one else? All right, sure thing. I'll see you guys on Monday and Tuesday then. Have a good weekend, guys.
Thanks, Omar.
No problem. See you guys.
Thank you, Omar.